Friends, breaking news. The New York Times just filed an answer to our defamation lawsuit, and it is a doozy. And now, the New York Times has requested a jury trial as we barrel towards discovery. You all know by now that Project Veritas has won on motion to dismiss against the New York Times for defamation. The New York Times printing an original article saying we are part of a coordinated disinformation campaign, that we were deceptive. The New York Times defense was that their statements there were, quote, unverifiable expressions of opinion. The judge in New York saying to the New York Times that they were the ones engaged in deception and disinformation, interjecting their opinion in an A section news article. Now the New York Times has to reply to all of the allegations that we made in our complaint. The New York Times forced to answer our allegations in this answer filed in court just last week. The New York Times either had to admit the allegations, deny the allegations, or claim ignorance. Want to take a guess which one of those was a favorite of the New York Times?
Ding, ding, ding! What do we have for her, Johnny?
All throughout this answer, the New York Times keeps saying the New York Times lacks knowledge or information to form a belief as to the truth of the allegation. Over and over again throughout this answer to our allegations, they feigned ignorance no fewer than 40 times in their answer, claiming they, quote, lack knowledge and information. Things as basic as, what did Liban Mohammed say in his Snapchat video? We had said in our lawsuit, Mr. Mohammed displayed a vast number of ballots littering his car's dashboard while boasting in Somali.
Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. Wajida gaarigaygu waa buuxaa. Waxaas waa absent ballot salka yaala. Soo ma jeedin.
This is from our lawsuit. In another video, Mr. Mohammed filmed himself exiting an apartment complex with his hands stuffed with voters' ballots, boasting,
still hustling.
These are not hard things for the Times to have figured out. We didn't even film Liban Mohammed. He filmed himself, and one of our sources captured it. Turns out the New York Times simply, quote, lacks knowledge and information, unquote. Who'da thunk it? The Times' own policy effectively requires New York Times reporters and journalists to reach out to subjects for comment, and the New York Times admits that they didn't do that. Quote, New York Times admits that Ms. Astor, her editors, and the New York Times did not reach out to Mr. Mohammed for comment. The New York Times, all you had to do was pick up the phone and call him, and Mohammed would have said, that was me, that was my Snapchat, and I recorded myself. But you didn't do that. And maybe you didn't do it because if you did do it, you'd have to publish that it was real. But what you put in your A-section news article, you said that we were, quote, making claims without evidence. You didn't even pick up the damn phone and make a phone call. And you call yourself journalists. The New York Times also admits that it didn't reach out to Mr. Jamal, who was one of our sources. Also happens to be one of the New York Times' sources, by the way. They selectively edited that out of their article. They didn't reach out to Mr. Awad, who is a subject featured in our video. They didn't reach out to any of these people. The only people that the New York Times reached out to was those people who supported the narrative that they wanted to tell. And speaking of only reporting the narrative they wanted to tell, remember how the New York Times said that I was part of a, quote, coordinated disinformation campaign? At least in part because I embargoed the material with people who had a platform that could publicize these videos. People like Mike Lindell. I met with him. I shared with him an advanced copy of our journalism. The Times now admits that Maggie Astor, wait for it, she was given an embargoed copy of this election integrity report. The New York Times did the very thing they accused us of. If that's considered, quote, disinformation campaign, or a coordinated disinformation campaign, then the New York Times would be engaging in a coordinated disinformation campaign by doing embargoed copies of things right before they're published. It's asinine. It's irrational. It's outrageous. It's defamation is what it is. Or as the prominent Canadian vlogger has stated, it's just plain old projection, Dean Baquet.
Remember what we always say on this channel, hashtag confession through projection, because it looks like that is exactly what the New York Times did themselves.
Now, you had seen that the New York Times defense in their motion to dismiss was the statements by Maggie Astor were, quote, unverifiable expressions of opinion, unquote. In this answer, the New York Times admits that Maggie Astor is, quote, not an opinion writer for the New York Times, and that Tiffany Shu is a news reporter, and that, quote, her article was published in the media news section of the Times, unquote, and not in any opinion section. Britt Hume, legendary journalist, tweeted this out the other day, quote, one of the remarkable things about this case is that not only did the New York Times acknowledge the reporters injected their opinions in a news story, they made that part of their defense. The staggering implications of the New York Times defense, that it was mere opinion what they were writing, when USA Today uses the New York Times as their fact-checking mechanism. Camille Caldera at USA Today, researchers claim video is part of a coordinated disinformation campaign based upon what people, quote, told the New York Times, and Facebook relies upon USA Today to send a notification to tens of millions of people saying that there was, quote, false information in the video. Do you understand how damaging this has been to Project Veritas and to the truth? What do you think a jury is going to do when presented with this evidence, Mr. Dean Baquet? And now it all comes out. It was all bullshit. You didn't even make a phone call to corroborate this information, because if you had made the phone call, maybe you would have corroborated it. The Times is demanding the ability to print their opinion as fact and never tell you that they're doing it. And people say, what are we going to do about the problems in our society? How are we going to solve the issue? As long as that oligarchy exists, nothing can be done. Now, the next extraordinary series of events in this New York Times answer under oath is the admission that, in fact, what Liban Mohammed did, all those ballots in his lap in the car, well, indeed, the law there, it was illegal, what was happening. So the New York Times, in their original article, wrote that the law that Liban Mohammed was violating, well, the New York Times reported as fact in their original article, the New York Times reported there was a temporary suspension on the ban, that it wasn't illegal what Liban Mohammed was doing. However, in 104, the New York Times admits that the district court, quote, ruled a delay on the enforcement of the law. So the New York Times is effectively admitting that it is illegal to have more than 3 ballots. So the New York Times, just here in our lawsuit, has already printed an update. They've already done a correction. I mean, the New York Times refused to correct the article, but they're correcting the article in our lawsuit. And they're still refusing to correct the article. They didn't call Liban Mohammed for comment, even though their ethics policy requires them to. They doubled down saying that all this stuff might be false, but it's just our opinion. They claim that we were coordinated disinformation, but apparently engaged in coordinated disinformation because they did the thing they accused us of doing, namely embargoing material and receiving advanced copy material with their friends who are opining about us. They had a pull quote in that print article saying that we presented no evidence of any illegal voter fraud, but when under oath, they admit that it was in fact illegal to harvest more than 3 ballots. And I go back to the most egregious thing of them all, which is that Facebook.com sent a notification to tens of millions of people, perhaps. We don't know the exact number. All those tech companies rely upon the New York Times. And what does the New York Times say? Well, could be false. It was just our opinion. Dean Baquet, I will depose you under oath. Do you understand that I had Somali American people, and heroes are in short supply these days, who are risking their lives to give us that recording of Liban that he recorded on his Snapchat? Do you understand what it is like to have tens of millions of people getting notifications, calling you fake, saying your videos are false, and you defend yourself with this garbage? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You're lucky that there aren't thousands more people suing you for defamation for what you've done. And you better get prepared for a jury trial, my friend, because there is no amount of money that you could give me to make me settle this case.